Could the Montreal Canadiens be a playoff team, Coco?
Playoffs?
Now, that seemed like a preposterous idea even weeks ago, but the Habs have been red hot. This is Power Plays, powered by FanDuel, a special 5-minute Habs edition. Now, FanDuel's not loving Montreal's chances to make the postseason, plus 680 to make. Do you think FanDuel has it right, the odds stacked against Montreal?
Yeah, I do think FanDuel has it right because nobody had the Montreal Canadiens making the playoffs this year. And I think FanDuel feels the same way, regardless of their recent streak of success here. And it's been awesome to watch. 8 wins in their last 10 games. They've been getting great goaltending. Lane Hutson's turning into a star. Cole Caulfield's having a great year. Nick Suzuki's having another year. There's a lot of positives in Montreal, including Patrick Laine finding some great success in his debut for the Montreal Canadiens. But 40 games in, they're in a playoff spot right now, a place where nobody predicted them to be. But you look at this recent trend throughout the National Hockey League this year. Teams have been streaky. You look at 2 teams in the mix right now. The Ottawa Senators had their streak of success. Now they've sort of fallen back. The New York Rangers started off like gangbusters to start the season. Now they're out of the playoffs. So I think what the odds makers expect is this Montreal team to come back to earth. And when you're talking about them being in a mix of 8 teams, that's a 1 in 8 chance right now. 680 is actually good value. Talk about 1 in 8 chance. But there could be a regression to the mean here with Montreal.
If Montreal was to make the postseason, you would need an incredible second half from Lane Hutson. You got a great first half from him, up 30 points in 40 games for the stud rookie for the Habs. Do you see him as a future number 1 D-man in the NHL?
Absolutely, I do. Because you look at the talent that he represents. He's got game-breaking abilities. He can run a power play. He can generate offense. And as a rookie, he's generating over 22 minutes a game, which means they want him on the ice at all times. And if you're looking at comparables for being a number 1 defenseman on contending teams, how about Cale Makar? How about Quinn Hughes, the guy that he played yesterday and had a goal and 2 assists? So absolutely, I look at the player and the intangibles that he brings to the Montreal Canadiens. Excitement, puck moving, offensive skills, point production. All that stuff represents number 1 defenseman on that team.
We're still a ways away from the NHL trade deadline, but it's always a worthy conversation. Are you going to be a buyer or are you going to be a seller? Where do you think the Montreal Canadiens fall?
Look, we talked about them and their playoff chances right now. I think the players have told the management group that we want to be a playoff team, so they should absolutely be buyers, a position they haven't been in a very long time. And you got to take advantage of opportunities like this, where maybe you're exceeding expectations with a group and your players are wanting you to do more to make the team better. Marty St. Louis definitely wants to be a playoff team. And you look at the additions that they've made so far this year and the impact that they've had. Patrick Laine making his debut. It almost seems like it's been a turning point of the season because the team has fed off that energy that he's brought to the lineup. They go and acquire Carrier. He's been a nice fit. So you have to know that any addition you make is going to have a positive impact in your lineup. So if you're the Montreal Canadiens, you're done with the selling. It's time to move on. Be a buyer.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be an unrestricted free agent, right?
Someone that just makes your team better.
Someone makes your team better. Someone with term that could be a part of your organization for a long time, which I think a lot of Habs fans hope that would include Jake Evans, a pending unrestricted free agent. He's had a really nice season to this point. But as a free agent, what would you be comfortable giving him if you were Montreal?
Well, he's 28 years old, and he's on the verge of having a career year with Montreal. Shocker. It's in a contract year. That's what guys do. But the key to Jake Evans is that he's finally found a role that fits for him, and Marty St. Louis addressed that. He can be a checker. He's a great penalty killer. And he's a guy recently who's contributing on offense. And he's really solidified, whatever you want to call it, the third line or the fourth line for the Montreal Canadiens. He's really solidified that role with that team. So if you're looking at a 28-year-old that fills that type of role, you've probably got to look at somewhere between a 4 and 5 year deal, somewhere in the $3 to $4 million range. And I actually think that fits very appropriately to Montreal's salary structure.
Yeah, and Ivan Davidov is a guy who's going to factor into the Montreal Canadiens in a major way in the future. In the KHL right now, the guy has been putting on a clinic, both statistically and on the highlight reel. I mean, what can we expect from this kid in the future?
Well, electricity is what you can expect because he's a human highlight reel. Every time you look at KHL highlights, he's a guy scoring a highlight reel goal. And look, the KHL notoriously is a hard league to produce, and especially as a young player. And for him to be having this much success in that league at that time, all it has to do is provide an enormous amount of excitement. Actually, an exceptionally excited. I'm going to use Ross Atkins' term.
Toronto Blue Jays general manager. I love it.
But you look at the talent level that's come up through Montreal. I've always said, people talked about Marty St. Louis and his job. Montreal never had a coaching problem. Montreal had a talent problem. And Davidoff is one of those guys that can help make the future look a lot brighter, including Michael Hage in Michigan. You're talking about Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Caulfield. Great mix of young talent that the Montreal Canadiens are putting together. And when you can add Davidoff to that mix, it gets even more exciting.
The big club playing some great hockey, a bunch of young prospects coming up through the system. Good times ahead for the Montreal Canadiens.